Hello, everyone. Welcome to Real Talk Food Safety with Tia and Jill. Welcome.
Hello, everyone. Hello. We are so grateful that you're joining us today.
Yes, please put where you're calling in from. Hashtag live. We like to see who's listening live. And then we do have a replay on LinkedIn, but also on our YouTube channel, our Catalyst YouTube channel. So if you're listening at the replay, please put where you're from and put hashtag replay. We love to hear where everyone's listening in from.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we are excited because today is all about coaching. And so we're hoping that if you're listening in, you can help us out. So as you're telling us where you're joining from, tell us also or share with us, what does coaching mean to you? We'd love to find out what that's like. And then we're going to check in at the end as well and find out if anything we share today maybe gives a new perspective on coaching.
So I love this topic, Jill, and we're going to introduce our special guest in a minute. But I'm loving this topic, and I'm so glad you were the driver for this topic on our show, because a lot of people don't think about coaching when they think about the food industry or even food safety and quality.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think we all know coaching has been a buzzword. In fact, a couple months ago, I know I even saw a job description from a big food company that was looking to hire a food safety and quality coach. And of course, I'm so curious if someone's in that role to learn more about what you're doing. But I think that kind of lends itself to the topic today because there are so many definitions of what coaching looks like and what it does.
You know, I'm honestly glad to see that job title was out there, because, you know, we see coaches or what job titles look like as a coach for operations, you know, supply chain, or even continuous improvement. But typically food safety and quality is kind of left out of that realm. So that means we're really not getting that type of development or that type of leadership style that other functions get. And so, you know, our goal, and for people that have listened to us and know us, you know, our goal is really to help food safety and quality really integrate into the organization. So when businesses think about, okay, how do we give differential development, or how do we help our teams grow, they're also thinking about food safety and quality.
Mm-hmm. Well, and if you've joined us before, you know that we really believe that the change you want to see starts with you. So as you're stepping into the food safety quality leader you want to be and creating the food safety culture that you want to have happen, today we want to talk a little bit about how coaching can help support you on that journey.
Absolutely. So hello, everyone. We see you in the comments. Thank you for joining us. We have Robert, Lonray. Thanks for being here. Excited to see you back. Let's see.
Damaris and Wendy, and is it Pernicia and Nikita? Welcome. Yes. We're so glad to have you with us today.
Super excited for you to join. And if it's your first time here, we are Tia and Jill. We're really your go-to team for food safety and quality leadership and culture. We really believe that in order to build your food safety and culture team, you know, it takes technical skills, but it really also takes that leadership skills. And so what we do is really look at leadership skills, technical skills together, and focus on how do you integrate that into your business. So we're super excited for you all to be here. Welcome if you're new. Welcome if you are, if you've been joining us week after week. We do go live every Wednesday at noon Eastern time with many, many different topics that relate to food safety.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I can't hold off any longer. We got to introduce Jennie. We are so glad to have Jennie with us. Jennie Antolak is here with us, and she is from Learning Journeys, the International Center of Coaching. Jennie is the president there, and she's also a master certified coach through the International Coaching Federation, which is like the coaching professional organization. And she's also an advocate for our local Minnesota chapter. I feel a kinship with Jennie because we both are fellow hockey moms, and we have dealt with year and hockey stink. She also is a kick-ass piano player and singer and entertainer. Aren't you?
In my head, I am. I'm amazing.
You didn't know these details were going to come out.
Yeah. Well, and for me, I am especially fond of Jennie and her team because I graduated from their coaching program. And that's what really set the stage and helped me launch into being the food safety coach before merging into Catalyst. And I really feel honored to be able to be in that program and also to bring this unique coaching approach to our industry. So welcome, Jennie. It is a pleasure to have you here and to share with our audience why coaching is fun.
At the end, I expect everybody to do that.
At the end.
Yes.
So, Jennie, as we get started, would you mind sharing with our audience just a little bit about yourself and even your journey to coaching?
Well, my short story always is that my mother made me do this. She had been going through a coaching program, and the gentleman that was the head of it had told her to go back to Minnesota and start her own school. And that she had taken coaching way beyond where it was in the industry, and that she needed to do something about that. And so when she came back, she asked me how I felt about that and would I help her? And I was like, why not? So, but on the other side of it, I also was in grad school, and I was going through a leadership development master's degree program, and it was a wonderful program. And yet the one thing that it was missing was the how piece of leadership. There was all this great material and learning around what is leadership, what it can do, how it can impact, but it did not give the skills to connect to the individual, to a person's own belief system, their values, and I think their sense of motivation and sense of worth, which is our purpose for being here every single day. And when I started to explore coaching, I'm like, oh my gosh, for leaders, this is the how. And if each one of us, personally and professionally, were leaders in our lives, we need this skill. It's not just a skill for executives. It's not just a skill for these people. It's a skill for all of us so that we can connect at a deeper level. We can understand ourselves better, and we can move toward what has more meaning and matters to us if we utilize this modality more often.
I love that because we always talk about, leadership styles and leadership skills, what they are. Pretty basic, right? Like a lot of leadership programs, they cover the same type of things. But they miss the how. And that's one of the things that we focus on at Catalyst is how do you become the leaders you want to be, based off of your beliefs, based off of your own values and the future you want to see in the organization. It's almost easy to kind of talk about the leadership skills or even the soft skills that Landre pointed out. But the how is where it gets a little difficult.
Well, yeah. And I think that we assume the how. You just need to be a better communicator, Tia. Well, okay. And so then you start watching other people and you feel like a fraud because that's not how you communicate. That's not how you want to be, but you don't know who you are to communicate authentically that way. And so you start impersonating other people. And then you just feel even more out of sync with self. And then people complain about some other skill you're lacking now.
Right. And then it's like, okay, who else can I imitate to close that gap? Then you turn out to be a person that you're not. And it's hard to keep that up for years and years and years. So eventually you fell.
Yeah. Jennie, I find that story so powerful because I remember feeling that when I moved into leading more than multiple teams across facilities, because what I had was this story in my head about what a good leader looked like. And when I stepped into that space, what I attempted to do was model that. And yet that wasn't always the natural skill or the natural way for me to be. And so I started creating this gap between who I was and what I was good at and where I thought I needed to be. And, that's part of what caused this friction as a leader for me, because it wasn't working to my strengths. It wasn't helping me connect better with my team. It was me trying to wear this mask of what I thought a leader could be and work from that. And so, I find that really powerful, because we all create these stories. And I know that's one thing we talk a lot about at learning journeys are, what are the stories that we create and how do those either serve us or maybe not serve us?
Yeah.
So, as you talk about kind of this, like how we lead and the different skills, what was it that when you were in grad school and then with coaching, what type of things did you see that were those missing pieces?
Well, one was we throw around the word values all the time, and you had mentioned that word earlier too, is that we assume everybody understands values and they understand what their values are. But the reality is that we don't. We have an innate or primal need to belong. And so what we continuously do is we start to scan our environment to say, okay, what do other people think is important? I guess that's what I'm going to hold on to. Yet what it causes over and over again is this equilibrium, or this unequilibrium to happen, is that I'm out of balance because I keep taking on other people's values and try to make decisions based on that, not knowing that I can actually have my own. I can see this differently. And not only our values, but how we see the world. I talk about in our very first class, and then I remind everybody over and over again, because when we try to create change, we look at everybody else and we're like, oh, how come it's so easy for Jill? It's so hard for me. Well, going back to that belonging piece, and this is that piece of why what was missing in the program and what is missing for all of us when we create change, is that from the time we are born, there's this magical jar. And I like to think of it as a glass jar that is waiting for us. And then when we arrive, it is from our family, and it says, this is how the world is. And this is how the world will see you and how you will see the world. And this is who you can be and who you can't be. And this is what you need to believe and what you need to not believe. And this is how things are and how they aren't, what's right, wrong, good, bad. And inside of that jar, you're getting kind of hugged, if they're kind, with all these values and these beliefs. And you start to filter through that, because you want to be accepted inside of that. And maybe you don't pick up all of them, but you pick up enough to survive in that world or thrive in that world. And then when you make friends, you'll put on another glass jar, and that glass jar starts to filter things again, because even if you don't see the world exactly like your friends, you'll see it enough like your friends to have them be your friends. And then with school, work, every other community that you connect to, you're taking on these filters. And what we weren't taught in grad school or even in leadership programs is that we can choose to take some of those filters off, and we can choose to say, okay, what ones make up my identity that support who I want to be in the world, and how do I get clear with that it's, when something feels off, I can pivot back to what is here for me to claim. Where am I willing to stand? But that all goes back to our values. But we miss that piece somewhere along the way, is that I have to, for anything to make sense and to sustain itself, I need to understand what values I'm anchoring or choosing to operate from for that to be so, and for me to be okay with self.
I love that analogy. And, I 100% agree with that. And I feel like a lot of people don't take the time to understand where they stand and what filters they've gone through, and where their values are. That's one of the things when I first became a manager, I sat down and I thought about, okay, what are my values? What do I value in my work, in my life? How do I have my work-life balance? How do I like to work? And that's something that I communicated with my team. But I remember taking some dedicated time kind of thinking about that, but then also thinking through, well, it doesn't necessarily mean that because I value these things, it doesn't necessarily mean my team values those things. And as a person, right? Like, person A on the team, person B on the team, person C on the team, they're going to have different values, and they're going to have a different work-life balance that's different from me. So for me to understand what that is for them, and then to respect that difference.
Right. And even if they use the same words as you, can you inquire what's your definition of that? Because like family could look completely different, or work-life balance. That I could say I value that too, but my work-life balance is that I work 10 hours a day and take 1 hour out of the day to work out.
Right.
Or I don't know, but that piece. And what I think also is a misnomer is that our values are going to be the same for every single situation. And the reality is they aren't. And so, like, Tia, I commend you for taking the time to, when you became a manager, to say, okay, well, what values are here for me? Because we are constantly, with every decision we make, we are rearranging our values. And we joke about this in class a lot, is that if you think about the metaphor of a rock band, is that we tend to have a lead singer. And so whatever that lead singer is, that no matter what the new song is, we put the same lead singer, when maybe our backup singers, our other values, need to be singing this song because it sounds like crap right now. and so, but we don't sit and evaluate that. And so we need to do that for every single project or element that we take on, is that for this situation, who needs to be up front?
Right.
And then how do I articulate that, those other values are important, but right now they're taking a back seat.
Right.
That it's such a huge piece of it. And then it's so much easier when your employees, like you were talking about, Tia, that they have different values, but how do we negotiate this so that we can always be in harmony with each other?
So Jennie, that brings up a really interesting perspective, because right now in our industry, there is a lot of talk about food safety culture and having these shared values that drive the behaviors so that we can really produce safe food all the time. And it's just part of who we are and what we do. And yet part of what I wonder about is, because it's another set of values that most organizations are providing to their team members to say, this is how we operate as an organization. This is what it looks like. When you think about kind of like how that all works, what would that look like to be able to merge or to understand those values and how they fit with yours so that you can lead in that organization and in that space?
Yeah, I think it is doing exactly what Tia did, is when, and the team has everybody been able to discern what is valuable to them, and then having that conversation of what do the company values actually mean to each person, and then how do they align? Can I still see my values inside of those values? And if I can't, can we adjust them so that I can still feel like I get to show up inside of this? And if not, then maybe this isn't the place for me. But if there is a way for us to maneuver through that, then let's figure out how we can support all the values. They'll probably not all show up at the same time and in balance, but I think that's where when people get sick, when people are resisting, whatever it is that they honestly can't see. And it's probably more unconscious than conscious, but I can't see my values inside of this. And so I disengage. And so it's not that I'm trying to be a jerk. I just don't know how to be in this.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And a lot of people they're struggling with that, but they haven't quite recognized yet that your values just don't align with your organization's values.
Yeah, and it probably takes more than a declaration from an organization saying this is who we are. Because I think that's what we see often is here are our company values and here's how we see that those are displayed within our organization. And I suppose depending on the background work that led to the values and what those would represent and how integrated or collaborative that was with team members, would that make it more challenging or easier for the whole team to be able to see themselves in those values?
Yeah. Well, I think you learn how to communicate better wait a second. You're stepping on my value. But if you never get to have the conversation, do you also believe that I can never speak up and say, this doesn't work for me?
Right. One thing that food safety and quality professionals we deal with is that we do hear our organization say food safety is a priority. We care about food safety. But in reality, they don't want to invest in food safety. They don't want to give the necessary resources in order to develop programs and ensure that we are sticking with our programs and that it's happening. What would you say even to someone that's trying to be a leader in the space where they have the words from the company saying we prioritize food safety, but it's not necessarily being portrayed in that way, but that person is a leader, that person wants to impact their area of influence. Sometimes it's hard to continue fighting against something that in theory the company should be supporting, but in reality, there's always pushback.
So I don't live in that world, and I know but this is true in any world, is that there's always going to be barriers. The greatest gift of, I think, of humankind is that we have been given the ability that if we trust ourselves enough, we will find a way around through a better solution inside of barriers. And so going back to the team to say, here's our surprise today, is that we don't get to do it this way. But when you invite ingenuity in and creativity in and believe in the people, and they feel like they are a part of something important, and that's part of part of our makeup, is if we believe that I can contribute and that how I contribute makes a difference, I will find a way through this. And if I feel like everybody else has my back, we will be the most unstoppable and creative individuals. And so just because up above they're putting a barrier, who's to say that then you need to pass that on? What if that is your way of saying, okay, we just get to be more inventive in this space? And does that inspire them more to be like, we're on? It's like Donkey Kong.
Bring it on. So Jennie, even with that, so what would a leader bring forth to be able to create that?
I think, okay, so I think you're asking me two questions.
Oh,
so I want to clarify, Jill. When I hear bring forth is a solution, a way of doing it. I think the other is the presence of doing something. And I think that first, what that person needs to bring forth is, how are we being with each other that allows for the outcome to occur? And so that the how and the doing piece can make sense. And so I think, first of all, taking stock of how do we show up so that we constantly are in this place that I feel safe, that even my half-baked ideas, I can throw them out and it will not be shunned. It will be like, and this is, and then we could do this. And so it's not this, yeah, but that environment has to be there first before you can have a solution. And then the solutions can come from that. But it's really about to build that environment. How are we interacting with each other? Are we asking each other questions? Are we radically curious? Yeah. Or are we dismissing as soon as something happens? What are we looking for that upholds each other versus separates each other? I think it starts with our way of being before we can create that doing. And then you could ask me all day long creative ways of how to do it.
Yeah, I love it that you talk about creating this environment. And it's important to note that, you can create that environment within your immediate influence. Even if management at the top is not with you, or maybe the other building at the facility is not with you, but you have an area of influence. And if you can create that environment in your sphere of influence, you can thrive there. And then other people are going to be like, what are they doing over there? They're hitting their productivity. They haven't had any holds. They are thriving in food safety. The quality of the product is great. And people are going to start asking, what are you doing over there? And then your influence begins to spread outside of what your circle started.
Yeah, it's contagious. As that other people want. I think we all crave that kind of environment. And so exactly like what you said, Tia, I want what she's having.
Wait, isn't that Sleepless in Seattle?
Or Harry Met Sally?
Yeah, one of those. Along that, one of the things as you talk about that really brings me back to, when I spent way more time with you, Jennie.
Which we should do more of.
We should do more of. But that fundamental belief that I really found unique to coaching as I learned it with your group was that this core part of like, everybody is resourceful. Like we have all the answers. Sometimes we just maybe need help navigating through some of our stories to get there.
Right.
And sometimes I find, especially I think being technical and just the world we're in, we're advice monsters. We've always been rewarded to find answers and to give answers. And so, I'm wondering if you would share a little bit more about kind of that principle behind that, because I think that in my mind, that's one of the elements that's really different when it comes to coaching versus some of the other leadership aspects.
Yeah,
or elements of leadership.
And you think about the belief system is that people are creative, resourceful, and whole. That we've all been given these attributes. Yet what happens is most of us find our worth in being helpers. And our way of helping is, I'm going to shorten your suffering, because if I can see something in a better way of doing it, I should jump in because that's helpful. And yet think about in your own lives, the times that you had to really struggle to figure something out that nobody could give you the solution. And that it built your character. You had to find a way to solve it on your own, and that's where success came from. And how many times do you source from that reservoir for other things because you had to kind of be knocked down to see from a different perspective, to be like, oh, there's another option here. And if you weren't knocked down at that moment, would you have shortened the process of learning? And that's really what we're doing for other people when we jump in and say, here, just do it this way. And my repertoire of music is probably limited compared to other people's, but I like to compare it to, let's just say that Billy Joel went to Elton John and said, hey, I really like your music and I want to be on the same path as you. Can you help guide me through this? And Elton John thinks, well, sure. But his way of guiding is saying, well, this is how you play this. And this is how you sing this kind of music. And this is how, and so then Billy Joel doesn't fully get to be the piano man because he's working so hard to be the rocket man. And so then he always feels like, oh, am I going to do it wrong? And yet coaching is about finding your place to stand, and it's going to be wobbly. Yeah. But then every single time we get tested again, I get a little more sturdier in this. And I think of it as parenting. No matter what advice you can get from somebody else, my response always is, here, have my child. I want you to figure this out. Because you don't know until you are in that person's world or realm of how they would approach it. And you'll be more creative. You'll be more resourceful. You'll find a way that we're intuitive. I can't even talk. It's
because you're drinking water instead of your Diet Pepsi.
Yeah. See, if I would have just stuck with the Diet Pepsi, I could articulate. But since I thought I should be healthier today, it's messing with me. But we naturally are designed to figure out solutions on our own. And when that is stopped, we really actually choose bad choices a lot of times because we feel like our sense of control is being taken away from us. And so we will try to prove to other people that I can still control this, but I usually will do it in a bad way. So if you are trying to motivate other people and have them be resourceful, then stop helping them.
You're really talking about growth. Like development and growth. You really are sitting in this space of being uncomfortable in a space that you don't really know what to do. You need to figure it out. That right there is growth. And if people keep giving you the answers, or as leaders, we keep giving our team answers, they're really not going to grow to their full potential or grow into who they're supposed to be.
Right. And how do they ever take your spot if you keep shutting the door on them?
Right. Exactly. Okay. We have gotten a few questions from the audience. So Ashley asked around values, organization versus personal. Do you think it's possible to influence corporate values to embody similarities within your personal values versus getting out of the organization? So maybe thinking about like, how can you influence your corporation to take on similar values, especially if they're like almost there, but there's some missing pieces.
Yeah. And I think it goes back to our earlier conversation. It's almost like your team models the way for everybody else. As that, even if the company does not change the words of the values, can you start to interpret a better way of living those out, that other people are like, when I'm in a meeting with these people, they show up differently. And then they start to let down their guard and they start showing up differently. And then it just becomes this ripple effect that everybody, I kind of like hanging out with these people more.
Yeah.
But I've seen it. I have seen it at universities and how they serve their students, and the students started showing up differently. And then other students started coming and they're like, I'm not even a part of this class, but whatever is happening here, I want to be a part of this.
Mm-hmm.
And it does become contagious that you can flip it, but you have to believe in it, and you have to keep collecting evidence that this is worth it.
Yeah.
Jennie, do you think, like that, right? We have to keep working at it and have to collect evidence so that you can see it.
Mm-hmm.
So what stands in the way of being able to do that? And I'm going to ask the leading question here, because it seems like part of that is the intention. And I wonder about, we're so busy doing. Do we take enough time and make the space to pause to understand what that looks like for us?
Are you asking if you can take it, or?
Yeah, I'm just sharing that. But I sometimes wonder about that, because even I'm going to go back to teams, food safety quality teams. We are rewarded, and our success is often based on like jumping in and getting things done and taking care of fires. Mm-hmm. So I guess for our community, like, how do we pause to take the time to understand? I think, Ashley, your question about our values. And like, how do we work together? And what does that look like? Is that something, Jennie, that teams need to be intentional about doing? Or will it just happen naturally that they figure it out?
No, I think you have to work at it every day. I just had this conversation with a friend of mine, but she's also a facilitator. We started, I'm your guys' competitor now. We just started a podcast, but not your competitor. I will always cheer you guys on. And this is not my world.
We would love to hear about this podcast.
But we were talking about that for anything to change, and this goes right back to what you said at the beginning, Jill, is that you first have to choose to change, is that nothing outside of you can change until you decide to change. And that piece of, before any of that can happen, I have to first understand, who do I want to be in the world? Who do I want to be in my world? When I am with people, how do I want them to feel and interact? And when I leave them, what do I want them to say about me? And then it's about paying attention to, well, what am I doing to make that possible? And Terza and I, in our podcast, we were talking about that it seems so daunting. Like you get all these great articles and research on being present and purposeful in your way, but that seems so ambiguous and so big, and so we decided, what about if we just pay attention to something really small, because we're picking up millions of bits of information every second, and then we're sorting based on our values, based on what we think is important, that I'm only going to focus on these things, and we do it unconsciously, and then we react to it rather than purposely act on it. And so we said, let's just take shoes for an example. And we picked that because for the last 2 years, shoes and pants were optional. And but if we're going to go anywhere, we kind of need to have shoes. And how much something so simple, so that we think is trivial, actually impacts how we interact with somebody, what we think of them. is that if you are somebody that wears tennis shoes every single day, no matter what, that you always have your fun shoes on, that I probably conclude right away, oh, this person is laid back. I will show up differently for you. And I will have different conversations with you because of that. Not even thinking that I just picked up on your shoes.
Right. Yeah.
But that having, and that's a lot of words for your short question, but that piece of, can we wake up and ask ourselves, what am I paying attention to right now? How is it influencing how I'm interacting or responding to self, to others, or to the situation? And how in alignment is it to who I want to be?
I like that. I want to go to a question that Lonray asked, where he's really talking about being a coach. And the question is, what is there to gain in seeing others grow and becoming better than who we are as leaders? I think that this is something that some leaders struggle with, in the sense of, you're trying to be the manager, you're trying to be the person in charge. Honestly, I feel like this is a concern or a mistake really for new managers, where they're trying to show that they have leadership qualities, that they know how to lead a team, like that they are the person in charge. And so they find themselves not coaching their team or not helping with that growth, because what if there's someone that's stronger on the team than they are, or become stronger at being a leader than they are? And so they stunt that growth for that person, or they don't give that person opportunities because, really deep down, they're afraid that they could be a better leader.
And that's human nature. Yeah. And yet the flip side of that is, if you support that person, it will come back to you tenfold, and they will be more loyal to you than if you ever stall out that development. And they will understand the gift you are giving them, and it will be reciprocated in other ways. Plus, you'll look like a better leader in that. But it really is, in the moment when fear shows up, we don't sort from that place.
Right.
And so it has to be something that is understood of, what values am I exchanging for this? Can I put forth the value of contribution and growth, and be okay with maybe moving back the value of hierarchy?
Yeah.
Well, and I think that's really powerful, because one of the things that stepping into a leadership role that I think we talked about is often missed is, what is my actual purpose to be in this role? And how do I see myself in this role and in relation to others? Because so often the model that we've seen in our society doesn't always align with like this pure coaching form of helping people find their own resourcefulness. And so as you think about how you want to show up, for me too, it was a challenge, because for me to step into a space to be a coach, where I had to step back from my ego of saying, I can do that, I know that, I can move that forward. I had to put that in the back seat in order for me to show up as a coach for others to be able to grow.
Yeah.
And that's not something that's often rewarded or looked for in our normal organizations and communities.
Right. Especially if you're in an organization that don't really value, leadership really, or understand what it is. Because really a piece of leadership, and Jennie, you were touching on this, a piece of leadership is that you grow your people past where you are. And that reflects on what type of leader you are. And it only makes you better when you grow people in that way. Because that's literally the goal of a leader, is to make you better and to push you forward, and to help you grow, right? Which means not giving all the answers, not taking on tasks that do not belong to you, but really helping them figure out the answers, helping them become better leaders, because we all benefit from that. Your organization benefits from it. You benefit as a leader. Think about your teams that you have, and it's like, wow, this person is so strong on the team. That means that's an area you don't need to worry about. The leader of your team, because that person is super strong, and that person will make sure that things get done, and they'll communicate when they need to, and that you guys will be in lockstep if anything ever go wrong. Those are all benefits, for yourself as a leader as well as the organization.
Yeah. If you thought of it like as a dancing partner, that they're not, once you figure out what dance we're doing, then you're not fighting against each other.
Right.
And then that gets modeled out to everybody else of how have they figured out the most complicated tango possible. and I mean, like, think about, I don't watch Dancing with the Stars, but I have seen it. It just that concept of, here's somebody that this is their profession, and they take somebody that is not a skilled dancer, and they have the ability to make them look amazing. And if we did that as leaders, just because you think about dancing and music, they touch us at our core, and they free our spirits to really be in connection, not only with self, but with our dancing partner and with the environment. I mean, it is I don't know a better word, but it's almost spiritual when you get in that zone. And if leaders could do that, your employees would wake up every day and go, I can't wait to go to work.
Let's go dance.
Yeah. Let's go dance, yeah. And then Wendy had brought up the opposite side where, what if my manager is the person that is preventing me from growth? So they're not really in the position to kind of put their ego aside, but they're more in the position of, I'm trying to grow, but my manager keeps shutting me down, because they don't want me to be better than them, or whatever the reason is.
Yeah. And it really depends on who that person is, because depending on the personality, do you have access to real conversations with that individual, that they just aren't awake to what they are doing? Or is it that they're so into their position that no matter what you do, it's just going to make you sick and deplete who you are? And then at what point does that impact you so much that you carry it with you everywhere you go, even though whatever they're doing isn't true, isn't effective, that it has nothing to do with you? So where are they with that individual? And then is it worth fighting it?
Right. And then, I will add getting other people in the boat with you. So making sure that it's not just your manager that knows what you're doing and knows where your opportunities are and what type of opportunities you want to get in the future. Because if everyone's singing your praises, then it's almost like if your manager is the only person not singing your praises and the rest of the organization is, then people are going to be looking at your manager and like, well, what's wrong with you? Can you lead this person? Can you not identify talent? Can you not understand what people's strengths are and place them in the right opportunities? So making sure that it's not just your manager that's in the know of the things that you want, and the things that you want to go get. Because people will bring opportunities to you outside of your manager. So you want people to know that.
Absolutely. I think that's brilliant. Yeah. Can you create a tribe outside of that?
Right.
And what if you're in a position that you've given yourself a time frame that I just have to hold on for 6 months and then I can go do whatever. That piece of it, Tia, that you're talking about, I think it almost makes us able to tread water for that time. As can I go find other ways to fuel me and anchor me that it's not me
Right.
until I can find something else.
Yeah.
Which really leads perhaps to Nathan's question. Thank you, Nathan. And your question is related to projects, large and small. But the question is really like, what's something you can do in one day or 1 hour? And what's something you can do that will take longer than 1 day? And I presume that's to improve or to step into being a better coach and being a better leader. But Nathan, if there's something different with that, certainly just let us know. But that's kind of how I'm interpreting the question that you have there.
Especially because you mentioned, we should be working on these skills every day.
Well, it could be as simple as, so there is a coach here in the Twin Cities that his name is Richard Leiter, and he wrote the book, What Color is Your Parachute? And one of the questions that he asks himself every morning when he gets up is, what does the world need from me today? And even taking that to work is, what do my people need from me today? Or if you just take it personally, who do I want to be today? And then at the end of the day, checking in to say, or if you're Nathan, take it down to an hour. like maybe I only can do this for an hour, but checking in an hour to be like, how did I do? Did I nail it? Where did I nail it? Who was present? Who wasn't present? I think that what we don't pay attention to is the people we surround ourselves with, choice or not choice, influence who we are being. And the silent agreements we have with those people influence how we interact. But then that piece of, where do I want to adjust? And keep adjusting. The other piece is paying attention to, how are you asking questions? And how often are you asking questions? How curious are you truly? Or are you always coming from a place of assumption or conclusion? Just like the shoes. Nathan, and tomorrow I wonder what shoes you'll put on for yourself.
I love that, because you can do that in an hour. You can ask yourself, going into a meeting, maybe you're going into a meeting and you're like, okay, I'm going to be presenting, what type of leader do I want to be in this meeting? What do I want people to take away as being a presenter? Do I want it to be serious? Do I want people to be able to relate to me? Whatever those things are, I love that question. What type of person do I want to be today? What type of, support do I want to give? What type of leader do I want to be today or in this meeting that I'm going to? And then evaluating at the end, or debriefing with yourself, did I hit that goal?
Yeah. Yeah. And just those simple pieces of, what am I going to clue into or tune into to reinforce that being?
Right.
As if you know that in certain meetings, certain people throw you off, do you have other people? Like, I would drag Jill with me to certain meetings if there was some jerk that always threw me off, and I'd be like, Jill, you're my person.
Yes.
Every time I stop smiling, I'm going to look at you. And as okay, I got to recalibrate. I got to get back into the game.
I love that.
And I think that really relates to, because on this show, we've talked many times about being active or passive. And as a leader, you need to be actively leading. And what does that look like? So if it's those moments of how am I showing up today, or if it's what am I doing for my team today? What do they need from me? It's actively asking those questions to explore. And I think, Jennie, that's one of the things that I find most fascinating about coaching is through our normal day, we have so many assumptions and stories that we just insert for ourselves and on everyone else, that if we can just make a little space to step back from that and be curious, it's amazing.
Right.
That we can start to train ourselves to do that a little more and a little more. Sometimes, right, we fall back and we don't do it at all. But once you've experienced it, then you can keep going on that path. So
absolutely. Yeah.
You know, I want to bring up Damaris' question because we talked about just like imitating someone else that might not even be who we are, even from a personal style of leadership. And so she asked, how can you stay true to yourself when others pressure you to go in a different direction? And when I think about this, you know, I'm an extrovert. So, you know, I like to connect with people. I get my energy from that. But that is not everyone. And when you look at leaders that inspire, a lot of people try to point you to people who are extroverted. And they are loud and bold and they're doing all these things, which, you know, sometimes I'm like that, sometimes I'm not, right? To be honest, the older you get, the more I'm not like that. But you know, but a lot of people try to push you in that direction when really that's not you. What would you say to that? What would you say is a way that you can step into your own true self without you know, succumbing to that pressure?
Well, I think first getting really clear about what does your true self look like, sound like. What do they do? What do they not do? And so that you get a whole concept of who am I at my purest and my best. And so when you start to falter, that you can go back to it, but you also have to understand what is important about each one of those elements. So if somebody else strongly encourages you to do it Tia's way, and that you can articulate what is important about your way. Because I really think, and maybe I'm very Pollyanna in this, but I do think that if people understand what you're anchoring in or what your values are and why it is important, that most people will be like, oh, I didn't get that. I don't want to take that away from you.
Right.
And so now that I understand it, I will protect it.
Right. Yeah, I love that. And I love it when you talk about like people don't understand the benefit of a different style, even because you know, even being an extrovert, and for people that know me, I'm super positive in situations. Like I always look at the positive side of things, and I got the feedback when I was an early leader on, Tia, sometimes you're too positive, and I'm like, what does that even mean? You know, but and I remember reaching out. I had a peer group, and I said, hey, I got this feedback, and someone had said, I got that feedback too, and this is what they told me, and he helped me understand that, oh, people don't know when I'm serious and when I'm not. And so I remember then touching base with my team and people that, you know, my peer that I would pull in and say, hey, this is the feedback that I've gotten. You know, I cannot not smile. You know, I cannot not be myself. Do you, and I would ask the question straight up, like, do you understand when I'm being serious? A lot of people say, yeah, I completely understand when you're being serious. I don't think anyone else gave me that feedback, but it made me aware. So in situations that I went in that I know I need, this is a serious situation, you know, I kind of was really mindful about that and made sure that my point got across. And then I started getting feedback from my team on, oh yeah, Tia will tell you what the real thing is and what you need to do, but she'll say it with a smile. And come out of the meeting like, yeah, I do need to do that.
Wait to deliver everything with a smile to you.
Yeah.
So once I got that feedback, I'm like, check, okay. I was able to take something away from that, but that was one of the things that I really felt pressured going into another, taking on another style that wasn't mine.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's important. And we've talked about this too, that one of, being a leader is really about awareness. It's awareness about yourself and what's important and what you're grounded in with your values. It's having awareness of how you're showing up for others. It's the awareness to be able to ask those questions and be curious so that you get the feedback like, are you being too positive? Because, toxic positivity is real, even though I think we could all use a little bit more positivity.
Absolutely.
And so I think those are parts that I find fascinating when it comes to coaching, because however you want to call it, if it's reconnecting, rediscovering, those parts that are important and help ground you so that you can show up as who you are. Because we all know that when we are authentic and in our truest self, that is when we shine. No matter what characteristics we're bringing forth or what skills we're bringing forth, that will always come through when we're being our true self.
Yeah. And that's when people trust you and believe in you. So, yeah.
Wow. Well, this has been amazing. And I just looked and I'm like, we are already at an hour. And I knew our hour would go so fast because coaching is
fun.
Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate your insights. We know that people took away some great feedback and some great insights because people have commented in the comments, which we love. We thank you all for being here and listening to us. And we always love to share our email because we love to hear what's going on in your space. And this, coaching is so important for our space. And it doesn't get talked about a lot, but it's something that we, you know us by now, right? Like we like to have the real talk around food safety, and we want to make sure that that coaching is an option and that coaching is important for us in food safety and quality and in all industries as we try to figure out how to be a better leader, how to push culture forward.
And so, Jennie, thank you for being with us. We will find what your podcast is so that we can share that with our audience as well. Because these little nuggets of Jennie wisdom, they just fill me up. So,
well, thank you.
Every week.
That's funny. Oh, but thank you. I feel so honored. And thank you, everybody that joined, because I think the only way that we are going to be better individuals in society is to keep having conversations.
Absolutely. Thank you, everyone. We will be back next Wednesday at noon Eastern.
All right. Enjoy your day, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Take care.